Shanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah, to
Amen.
be engaged in the study of Torah. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen, and here is the scholarship. And I'm just going to start, and I'm going to read. This is in the Mishnah, which is the first part of the Talmud. The whole world is not as worthy as the day on which the Song of Songs was given to Israel. For all the writings are holy, but the Song of Songs is the Holy of Holies. Now, do we know what the Holy of Holies is? Does anybody know what that is? When it's referred to?
No.
The Holy of Holies is the word used to describe the innermost sanctum of the temple, where the ark is, and where the high priest only ever was the only person who ever went in there at all, and he only went in there on Yom Kippur. This was the innermost sanctum, the holiest place. And if Jerusalem is the holy city and the temple is the holy building, then there's the outer courtyards, the inner courtyards, and then there's the Holy of Holies. That's the holiest place. And Rabbi Akiba, who was a great Talmudic scholar, one of our greatest, compared the Song of Songs to the Holy of Holies. So that's pretty amazing. Okay, so let's look at why and
May I ask you a question about that? Holy of Holies? Is that where
Yes.
most of the Ark of Aaron's rod was, that budded there?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yes, it was there. Okay, so where am I? Word. Oh, no, I have to do share. Sorry. Let me go back to you. I have to first write share. Where's share screen? Share screen. Holy of Holies. Okay. So, Rebecca, why don't you start? You're muted though, Rebecca.
Thank you. With this declaration, our great Talmudic scholar, Rabbi Akiba, transformed an ancient collection of erotic love poetry into a sacred text, comparing it to the innermost sanctum of the Temple of Jerusalem, where God was said to dwell. Written in the style of love songs, monologues, and dialogues between two young lovers who live in Jerusalem during the reign of King Solomon, Song of Songs is a testament to physical love and the appreciation of physical beauty, both in nature and the human body. In some of the most exquisite poetry in the entire Bible, the lovers express their yearnings and desires in explicit sexual language, while at the same time communicating their profound and enduring emotional love for each other.
Okay, a little more.
Yet it is included in the canon of the Hebrew Bible as one of the 5 Megillot in the Book of Writings, and also a part of Jewish holiday services. It is customary to read the song, as it is called, on the first night of Passover, at the end of the Seder, and in the Ashkenazi communities on Shabbat Chol HaMoed.
Okay, Shabbat Chol HaMoed means the Shabbat during the 7 or 8 days of Pesach. That's Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Shabbat Chol HaMoed, before the reading of the Torah. In Sephardic communities, the song is read at the end of every Kabbalat Shabbat service.
So it's really beloved, and it's so beautiful, and yet it's, as you said, it's on its face, it's a bunch of erotic love poetry. So how could they, rabbis, include this in our Hebrew Bible? Why did they do that? So, okay, so let's just stop for a minute. Any ideas why they would want to include something like that, so erotic and beautiful in the Bible? Any ideas why that might be?
Well, relationships are important. Relationships are important, and the expression of love is an important part of relationships, whether it's your husband or your girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever it happens to be.
Yes, but there's nowhere else anywhere where they talk like this, and they're not married either.
Oh my gosh. I can relate, Janelle, and I do this all the time.
Okay, thank you. However, one idea is that it was so popular, beloved, part of the culture, and that, I don't know, the rabbis decided they couldn't leave it out. Maybe they were very moved, but to justify it, they had to really reinterpret it as something other than what you're actually reading, which is so interesting. It seems to have been a series of beautiful folk poems, or really, famous poems that everybody knew or chanted, as we'll see. But the rabbis had to, like, in some way justify putting it in the Bible. So we'll continue. So let's see. Okay. Lori, do you want to read? It should be
Sure.
noted. Okay.
Okay.
It
It
should
should
be
be
noted.
noted that God is never mentioned in the song, nor is the Torah or any other historical or theological theme found in other parts of the Bible. Furthermore, the song offers no clue to its author or to the date, place, or circumstances of its composition. In her essay, The Song of Songs in the Jewish Study Bible, Elsie Stern writes that with the exception of a few references to King Solomon, there is no mention of known historical figures or events, nor do the references to human behavior correlate to the attitudes or situations of a particular historical period. In addition, the book contains both archaic language and relatively late words, which makes it difficult to establish a date on linguistic grounds.
In other words, it has old language, from like 100 years, hundreds of years ago, and then sort of more modern language. Because we know, certainly if anybody's watching, well, Shakespeare, look at Shakespeare, look at the language, what was called English in Shakespeare's time and today. And even anybody's watching The Gilded Age on HBO about, life in the 1880s, language was much more formal. So you can usually figure out when something was written by the language, the grammar, the syntax, or whatever. But the Song of Songs has both. So they're not sure. Continue.
Contemporary scholarly consensus hypothesizes that the poem has its roots in early folk and literary traditions, but was composed or redacted in the 4th or 3rd century BCE.
Okay, so it was either in like 300 or 200 BCE. Is that right? 300 is the 4th century?
Yeah.
Or is it 500? No, 300 or 200 BCE. So it was written, 2,000 years ago, more than 2,000 years ago. I love it so much. You're going to love
Wow.
it. Okay.
So basically it was updated someplace later.
Well, let's say it was sung or chanted maybe for a few hundred years before that, but somebody finally wrote it down, and they added some modern language. I mean, it's fascinating. Whenever I teach Torah study on Fridays, I go and look at the translations of the Torah, and you can get the King James Version, the New King James Version, the Jewish Publication Version. There's like 5 or 6 translations, and they all use different words and I look at the Hebrew, and sometimes it correlates, and sometimes it's very different than the Hebrew, or they've decided. In rabbinical school, we learned translation is commentary, because you're commenting, or it's your view by the way you translate a word. And I actually did some translation too in my version, where I liked one word better than another word, or I looked at multiple translations and said, well, I think this word is, closer to the Hebrew, or something like that. So again, what they're saying is there was this mixture of old and new, but they figure it was written around like 300 BCE. So it was pretty well known. All right. Doris, you want to read?
Yes, thank you. How did this secular compilation of erotic love poetry find its way into the canon of the Hebrew Bible and become the Holy of Holies? One answer is Midrash, or to be precise, Aggadic Midrash, which transformed the song into a powerful allegory.
Okay, let me stop. So, Midrash is kind of like an interpretation they say, well, it doesn't really mean this or it means that. Like there's a midrash. Well, there's a very famous midrash about how if Cain and Abel were the only two children of Adam and Eve, how did they have more children? How did they reproduce? There were no more women except Eve. And then the rabbis looked and they said, well, it says, and Cain was born and Abel was born. And so those ands, they say, mean there was a sister born with each one, and they cross, fertilized or married or whatever, because they were the only people. This is all a myth anyway. But the idea is sometimes they look at words, they look at things, and they say, well, it really doesn't mean that. It means this. So the rabbis looked at Song of Songs and said, oh, no, we have a much better. This is not what you think it is. It's not just sexy, beautiful love poetry. Okay, continue, Doris.
Yes. Agadic Midrash reflects our sages' creativity and imagination in understanding a scriptural text in a fresh and often innovative manner. In his essay, Agadic Midrash, Mark Hirschman defines Agadic Midrash as a collection of rabbinic comments on scripture, including anecdotes, maxims, and theological reflections, which were cast into a framework of scriptural commentary.
So they would tell stories, like I said, about Cain and Abel. They would say, oh, this word means this, or it's teaching us that. And it was really their own interpretation. And he says, even though it's clear that some of the material originated in other contexts, even though it started meaning something else, the rabbis decided, oh, no, this is what it really means. Continue.
This is exactly what happened to Song of Songs, as we shall see. Shall I continue?
Okay.
No.
Wait a minute. Some of this is a little too. Okay, this is like just saying it offers insights, history, moral philosophy, and they use the midrash. Let's go to here. Hirschman explains.
Hirschman explains that the rabbis of the classical period, 1st to 5th century CE, utilized midrash to express their thoughts on certain subjects by presenting them as new interpretations of a text, as opposed to simply giving a sermon or presenting their ideas independently.
Okay, so I did this on Yom Kippur. It was my midrash. I said, when we do the Micha Mocha, where we say, who is like you, God, we say that at every single service, Micha Mocha, among the other gods. I said, on Yom Kippur, imagine a midrash where it says God is saying to us, who is like you, human beings, among all human beings, and you are unique, you are one of a kind, and you have your own potential. So I would tell it that way, as opposed to saying, people, you are one of a kind, you have your own potential. Instead of giving a sermon, if you tell it in a story or a fable, people hear it deeper. And that's what midrash does. It's the rabbi's sermon in a story or a fable, so that you go, oh, that's really nice. And you listen to it differently than if the rabbi's just telling you, look at every person as a unique human being. You go, okay, fine, you're preaching to me, as opposed to kind of tempting you into this thought yourself. Okay.
Do you think it could be easier to understand that way for people that are listening to this?
Yes, much more easy to understand. You have an emotional response, not just a mental response. Okay. Obviously, right here, Doris.
Obviously, a midrash based on a new interpretation of the Tanakh would carry more weight and have more influence than a rabbi's personal reflections, no matter how revered he is. Thus, it was the decision of rabbinic scholars and later editors to use the Bible as a framework or encyclopedia for all their musings.
Right. So, hold on, I would just.
What we were just saying, yeah.
Yeah, like rabbis would say, well, it says in I grew up in a modern Orthodox temple, and the rabbi would say, the Torah portion is about liberty or something. Or thou shalt not steal, for example. And then he would say, and that's exactly what's in the newspaper this week, or this news. He would completely connect what was happening this week to the Torah portion. And I remember thinking, how does he do that? How can he figure that out? Of course, now I've learned how to do that myself. But I was so amazed that the Torah always was talking about what was going on in modern times. And that's how you give a sermon. That's what the rabbis do with Midrash. Instead of just telling you, they connect it in a way that we're like, wow, that's so interesting. Oh, yes. Sorry, Laura. Yeah.
I have a question. So by doing this, it also seems to me that they're taking away the female perspective, because the farther away you get from when it was written, the more the rabbis are interpreting it. And over time, doesn't that diminish a woman's point of view from what's written?
Well, the classical view, you'll see, I'll give you a little hint, is they actually see Song of Songs as a love story between God and the Jewish people, and we're the bride, the feminine, and God is the groom. So they're talking about that. But over the centuries, there's feminist view and Kabbalists, and I've felt this for a long. Kabbalists are very mindful, respectful, and embracing of the feminine in their cosmology, in their philosophy. They're always looking for the divine female presence, and so they insert feminine. But feminists, which we'll get to eventually in this of the last century, completely see this as a feminist tract. So you're right. But they weren't going male or female. They were going that it was a holy relationship is more where we're going with it.
Okay.
So, but you're right. A lot of times the woman's view is not necessarily. Oh, did you have a question, Donna?
Oh, I was just going to say the whole spiel and the description the man is describing his wife's intimate parts. It's about a woman.
Okay, we'll see that. Okay, so here I'm going to read this. These musings reflected serious scholarly speculations and reflections not only on the text, but on the text and context in the times. Agadic Midrash helped people cope with vicissitudes of life, understand human behavior and thus themselves and each other, presented profound philosophical and ethical teachings, and illuminated a path to righteous living. Like all fables and morality tales, the Agadic Midrash contains subliminal lessons that are often universal and eternal. So that's the great thing about Midrash. And Agadic just means stories. There's another kind of Midrash about law, but these are the stories, all the stories of what happened and how, and they all are written to kind of help us understand deeper philosophical views. As Rabbi Leader says, and I love to quote, it's not fact, but it's truth. It doesn't have facts, but it's full of truth. Okay. So, so let's just, this is like they decided to, they described meanings. Okay, so I'm going to go here. Pam, I saw you there. Welcome. Do you want to read? I know she was are you there?
I'm here. I just have to find the mouse and send it to the unmute.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to just put this away now. Okay. Go ahead. By ascribing?
Okay. By ascribing symbolic meanings through repeated images, characters, and events, the sages who compiled Song of Songs, Rabbah
means, it's like the Midrash of Song of Songs.
Got it.
Rabbah means the Midrash. The Song of Songs and Rabbah explains Song of Songs. Go ahead.
Song of Songs as a sequence of statements of urgent love between God and Israel, the holy people. The intensity of God's love for Israel is created through evocative poetry that not only elicits a myriad of emotions, but also stands for meaningful events such as the sea, Sinai, the world to come, the first redemption, the one from Egypt, the second redemption, the one from Babylon, the third redemption, the one at the end of days.
Keep going.
All of the images are metaphors, and it is the task of the reader to understand that Israel's holy life is being depicted through the poetry of the lover or bridegroom, which is God, and the beloved or bride, which is Israel.
Okay, so the rabbis, so like Genesis, many books have what's called a book rabbah, like Genesis rabbah, and that's the Song of Songs rabbah means the Midrash. And if you would look at Song of Songs rabbah, it will go through every line and it will explain in depth that each word means something else. This means Sinai, this means Exodus. When it says, oh, you're your legs are like pillars of ruby. They go, that's really referring to Mount Sinai. They find a way. It's actually brilliant to connect. And we're going to look at the text and you're going to see how explicit it is sexually. I mean, in a beautiful way, like your breasts are mounds of wheat, beautiful things. They'll say this is about, Sukkot or something like that. Every single thing is about God and our Jewish history. That's how they justified putting this in the Torah. Okay, so Neusner, who's a great scholar, you continue here, Tam.
Explains that the sages' understanding of the song reflected the depth and breadth of their love for Israel and God. The song was a mirror of their impassioned spiritual emotions. It was self-evident that there could be no other interpretation.
So this was what it was. It was this incredible, and actually, it's really interesting. I found a text of an ultra-Orthodox translation of Song of Songs, and they completely changed it to just talk about all these images. They don't even have the actual words, very few of them. They reinterpreted it all as this passionate love between God and Israel. So that was the first, and that was probably why Rabbi Akiva loved it so much. He's the one who was very impassioned about saying, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And he died as a martyr during the Roman rebellion with Bar Kokhba in about 120 CE. And they were literally flaying him alive. And he was saying the Shema, and his disciples would say, Rabbi, let them just kill you. And he said, no, because now I always wondered what it was to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your might. What does it mean, all your might? And this is it. And then he died. So he was extreme in his devotion to God. And also, there's this other, he was an amazing rabbi. He was the one who was loved by a rich young woman who supported him for 24 years while he became a rabbi, and she just stayed home and helped him live. But there's this wonderful story in the Talmud about, it says 4 rabbis went into the garden. One came back, one died, one came back, okay, one converted to left Judaism, and one went mad. And what they explained this to me is 4 rabbis, well, we don't know what they did, some kind of mystical experience where they went to the next world. They went to heaven. They went to God through the gates, according to this. And I often think, did they take drugs? Did they fast for like 2 weeks? They went into some kind of ecstatic state, and they ascended to some next place, and they came back, and one guy completely left Judaism, one died, and one went crazy. And Rabbi Akiva came back with all of this experience, and that's when he became this incredible mystical lover. And he's the one who says the most important commandment in the Torah is love your neighbor as yourself. So he's all about love, and passion and love of God. So it makes sense that he would say this is the Holy of Holies if he understands Song of Songs as this thing, which I don't, and a lot of people don't, but it's really interesting to know what they thought of it. So that was the very first interpretation, oops, oh my God, what just happened? I don't know how I did that. Okay. Okay, so then what's the next interpretation? Okay, now, in 1730, this rabbi wrote all this he wrote a whole book on Song of Songs, but he also included, in 1730, this Turkish rabbi, a new one. Here's the next idea, which had to do with Kabbalah. So, Nina, why don't you read? If you're undo your thing. Are you there, Panina? Are you there, Panina? No? Okay, Merle, why don't you read? because I can't see
Okay.
it.
We're
Okay.
starting with this book is unique.
Yeah.
This book is
book-
unique.
This is the book that this rabbi wrote about Song of Songs, not Song of Songs. He's talking about this
Oh, okay.
new interpretation. Okay.
This book is unique in that while in addition to presenting all the writings and commentaries of the Talmud and Midrash on Song of Songs, it also includes a metaphysical understanding, calling the song a sublime metaphor whose reflections touch upon many realities. According to
It's his book, Mayam Loez.
Mayam
Yeah.
Loez, the Song of Songs is a Kabbalistic expression of the attempt to reconcile the diversity and multiplicity of the world with the people, with the principle of unity. The multiplicity is represented by the daughters of Jerusalem.
Who are the chorus? They are the chorus in this story, the daughters of Jerusalem.
Okay. Who are symbolic of 70 nations, 7 days, and 7 wisdoms, and so on.
So all the mystical things of sevens that we ever learned, that's the daughters of Jerusalem in the story.
Oh, okay. Who, while
the unity
is represented by the bride, who is symbolic of a unique people, the light of day one, and the unique revelation of the Torah at Sinai by the one God.
So this idea is Kabbalistically, the Song of Songs is about the oneness of God and Judaism and the oneness of the beautiful light of the oneness in the world versus the multiplicity of different people, cultures, ideas in the world. So he reads it as this Kabbalistic meaning at the same time. Okay, Merle, one more. This is the Christian idea.
Another interpretation that must be noted is the Christian theological understanding of the song as an allegory in which the bridegroom represents Christ and the bride represents the church. Mm. In addition, similar in the Kabbalistic view, Christian mystics suggested that the song is representative of the love of Jesus for the individual soul or their own personal longings for God.
Okay. So it's the love of God and the Jewish people. It's the understanding of the multiplicity of the universe versus the oneness of the Torah, of God, and of us as a special nation. It symbolizes the love of Jesus in the church, or the longing for Jesus in your soul. So there are it's such a rich text that they keep, coming up with new things. Then we get to the more modern ideas, which were the feminist ideas of what it meant. So, okay, does anybody have any comments or thoughts about this at all? Do you find it Cindy? You're muted.
The Christian view, because it was written before Jesus existed.
No, it wasn't. It was written.
I thought.
The book. Yes. Yeah. The song, but they often believe in this prophecy, like they see the sacrifice of Isaac as a foretelling of God's sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. They look at so much of what they call the Old Testament as prophecies and foretelling of the coming of Jesus. And so they have no problem reinterpreting, just like we reinterpret. You know what I mean? They reinterpret it too. And there's a thing where it says a young maid will give birth to someone. It's a young maid, but they read it as a young virgin. And that's in Isaiah. And so they say, oh, you see, that's Mary and Jesus. So
But she was married to Joseph at the time, but was a virgin.
I know, but they say she was a virgin, even though apparently she had a son that was older, but I don't know how
James?
Yeah, wasn't he older?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I don't either. Okay.
How do you become a virgin after you've had a baby?
Sarah.
A miracle.
I want to just say, we kind of scoff, a little bit and go, oh, that doesn't seem realistic. But we have no problem believing that Sarah gave birth at 90.
Right.
To Isaac, or that the Red Sea parted, miraculously, or the burning bush. I've talked to Moses.
The seraphim and the Holy Spirit can make you a virgin.
Okay, but I mean, it's all mythology. It's all midrash, really. Penina, go ahead.
Okay, I'm looking at the background. The whole relationship is happening. It's being expressed and described as your breast as mountains of wheat, and the garden is full of roses.
Right.
יפה בשושנים, כן? The song, it's all roses, and there is like this describing like whatever it is, it's the beauty of the background I'm looking at also. And I think the message here was not just the love of Israel and God, but I think it's the background of what gave it the possibility to grow. Because you cannot do this if you are engaged in wars and problems with other nations. No time for love, because we know that the men will go all to war. And here it's description of Gan Eden, like
yes,
the garden of it's Eden. Beautiful and quiet. And the motif of love is doubled and tripled, but the background where it can grow and where it can express, it's there. And this is something that we have to remember, that this whole thing of the Torah and the Bible is the relationship of people that left Egypt and went to another country to become a nation that have the time to love and the time to grow all this and to pay attention to all this and form this relationship with God, that they have the time to do this. They're not busy with other things.
Well, there's more that
today, especially if what's happening there.
Right. It was a peaceful time. That was 300 BC. Well, it was Greek. But anyway,
even if it wasn't exactly what it is, it's the wishful thinking that that's where the love would go.
True. Absolutely. Okay, Penina, why don't you read?
Okay, where are we?
I'm going to show you. Okay, so I'm skipping a little.
By the way, I want to tell you something. I did a little research. You know, the Dead Sea from last week's Parsha, this dome, it was one of the 7 wonders of the world. It's the lowest place on earth below sea level. Today, it's not. It was taken off the list, and it's so sad because the Jordan River was now redirected because Jordan needed the water, and in the Israelite in the different areas, so it's not pouring anymore into this.
Okay.
So it
talk about it, but
surface changed.
Yeah.
It's not anymore one of the 7 wonders of the world.
That's interesting.
So where do you want me to read?
Jewish halach. Okay, it says Song of Songs has always been controversial. Okay, right
because
here.
Of its exceptional character.
Yeah.
Jewish halacha limits sex to within the confines of marriage and demands chastity and modesty from both men and women, making the blatant sexual nature,
which means very obvious.
Right. Blatant, where is it again? Sexual nature of the song unacceptable to our sages and to the rabbinic leadership ever since.
Yeah, so they just could not accept it. It's so, okay, continue. This is really interesting. Go ahead.
Yet, in addition to declaring the song to be like the Holy of Holies, Rabbi Akiva also declared, he who at the banquet house renders the Song of Songs in a sing-song way, turning it into a common ditty, has no share in the world to come.
In other words, he's saying people who were singing the Song of Song in the taverns, the banquet houses are the taverns. They were
again
singing,
to show us that the background.
He said, you're not going to go to heaven. You're not going to go to the world to come because you're.
It shows you that the background is very important. That's what
absolutely,
I was trying to tell
and that they were doing it. Okay, go ahead.
This implies that whatever the sages were thinking, the Israelites common folk seem to have viewed the song as a lusty ballad to be sung after a few cups of wine. In fact, in the late 1st century CE, the Mishnah recounts that on the 15th of Av and the Day of Atonement, unmarried girls in Jerusalem would dress in white and go out to the vineyards to dance and sing for prospective husbands, chanting verses from the book of Proverbs and the Song of Songs, one can surmise they were not thinking in allegorical terms.
Okay, so what they're saying is, okay, what are they saying? You tell me. What does that mean? What was happening?
The physical accentuating the physical part. Again, I'm saying that it couldn't exist. People are not going to pay attention to it if they have other things on their mind.
Right, but beyond that, I'm going to ask other people.
Okay.
What did we just read? That when was the Song of Songs sung in the population? When was it sung?
The women were singing to their spoken for husbands, and it's like a courtship.
Well, close to that. First of all, they sang it in the taverns when they were drunk. They would sing some parts of it. And also on the 15th of Av, which is the Tu B'Av, which is the ancient Israelite Valentine's Day.
Right.
This was the day of love in ancient
Right.
Israel. And on Yom Kippur night, after, you broke your fast, girls would dress up in white these 2 times a year, and they would go and look for husbands. They didn't have them. They were out there flirting.
I feel so good.
Singing, "Come, my beloved, I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine. You are so fair." Blah blah blah. They were singing,
assuming that God already pardoned everybody.
Oh yeah, but they weren't singing it as an allegory between God and the Jewish people. They were singing it as the love song between men and women. So even in conflict with the rabbis, the people were saying, "No, that's not what it means. It's this fantastic love song that we love to sing, and it's recite to each other." So
and the beat goes on.
Yeah, exactly. So Pam, did you have your hand up? Yes.
I just wonder why it's not both.
Somebody says it is both.
It is both.
It can be both. There's a contemporary commentary that says, actually, I love the way she gets there. She says, when you are so in love, physically with your partner, you kind of ascend to a spiritual level, and you can understand things on a deeper emotional level. And it can be at the same time loving God, loving the world, loving creation, and loving your beloved at the same time. So it can be both. Wait just a minute, Pamela. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, it seems to me that, like, when I've done meditations or had love experiences, if you remember, like, that first almost youthful infatuation, it feels like you love everything at that time, right? Everything is beautiful, everything is love. It does permeate. So
it does permeate.
I think that, to quote Rabbi Leader again, you tend although this isn't his quote, but you tend the part of the garden you can reach, right? So if as a young girl, so we're talking probably teenagers in those days, right? So if the way you relate to love in that youthful age is on the very material plane and the person to person, I think as you age, it translates into something bigger and more beyond when you realize there's a greater world than what's happening just inside your physicality in this newly changing body. So I almost feel like it's a stepping stone as opposed to oppositional. Like, I don't see it as opposition at all. I think
Thank
it's more
you
of
for
a
saying that.
I love
John
that.
just called me a teenager.
Okay, don't be irrelevant. Leslie, you had your hand up. Okay, Leslie.
I had a couple really quick comments, and I was sort of, to be honest, not completely paying as close attention as I should, but it seems very lustful to me. It seems like they're saying it's okay to be sexual, and that's how you get to get. It's very tantric,
yes,
very Eastern, I thought. So I'm just making that comment that it's like,
yeah,
you don't kind of chast, and you can't be running around in the saloons or whatever, but have more sex. And the girls are just saying, hey, come see, look how good I look. Right?
Well, they're saying, see how good I look to be my beloved. I mean, they're not looking to sleep around. They're looking for their love match.
Husbands.
They're looking for their love match.
And they're telling, me and my feminist thing, they're saying to their potential husband, I'm the one that's going to be really good in bed. So come to me.
Or I'm very romantic, I'm very erotic. Well, part of my interpretation that you'll see is it's way beyond being good in bed. To be a beloved and to keep your beloved and find your beloved, you have to look for certain qualities that I think are actually implicit in the song.
Right. Well, that's sort of the tantric thing, the
Yes,
go to the higher power.
Right on, Susan.
okay.
Also, like,
I'm
right?
sorry,
So you're
go-
seeking soulmate. It's through the physical, but it's also through the emotional. That
well,
soulmate
the
kind of.
word soulmate already implies a spiritual level
Exactly.
that is connected to the physical level, because you can have sex with someone and they're not your soulmate. But when someone's your soulmate and you couple or you have sex with them, it is a spiritual experience. So you're right, it is a blending or a melding of the two. Somebody else had their hand up, I thought.
I for 1 minute.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that it's a lot of a wishful thinking, because they think also that it was written about David. And
no, Solomon. Solomon.
They think Solomon? Okay.
Well, they think, but it's mentioned as Solomon, but then others, it wasn't Solomon. Ultra Orthodox will say King Solomon wrote it, and it's about him, but it was written like he lived in 900 and this was written in 300.
It could be because
he didn't write it.
During his time, there was peace. He made a lot of connections with all the kings around there, and he had 1,000 wives, so you could understand that maybe it could be.
I don't think he had a soulmate.
Well, one of them, maybe.
All right, wait, hold on a second before I do this.
One heart, one man.
Okay, like Diane, would you like to read? And then Bonnie? Okay, so let me,
I'll read.
Okay, hold on, share screen, and then, okay, so now we're going to, these are all the different views, and then it became, I just want to read this part so we can get to the feminist. They saw it as a drama with two characters, a cycle of wedding songs, a remnant of a fertility cult. The most important thing of it all was uninhibited celebration of sexual love, which contrasts with the kind of sexual ethic we see elsewhere in the Bible, where there's punishments and, your adultery and this and okay. Okay. Go ahead here, Diane.
Okay. When it comes to male, female, the Torah's primary concern is with asserting an authoritarian social control over betrothal and marriage, and preventing certain forbidden and often incestuous relationships.
Yeah, there's a huge list of who you're not allowed to sleep with, who you're not allowed to have relationships with, and all kinds of things. Go ahead.
In Song of Songs, there is no authority, only the points of view of the young, unmarried lovers who find love intoxicating, delightful, and irresistible. From this perspective, there can be no question of condemnation, regardless of social disapproval.
Yeah, there's no one's commenting. Okay, continue.
It is no surprise that contemporary Jewish feminist scholars have claimed Song of Songs as their own, as the only book in the Jewish Bible that is presented primarily from the perspective of a female speaker. It gives voice to some of the deepest and truest longings of a woman in her own voice. It expresses her desires, her fears, her dreams, her insecurities, and her triumphs. Though she has no name, we know her and can identify with her. Her commitment to life, love, and learning makes the unnamed woman in Song of Songs a ripe example of what a woman bent upon forging a life for herself might look like. She is headstrong, passionate, gutsy, and willing to risk the disapproval of those around her in order to pursue her own happiness.
So
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, Diane.
This young woman is not embarrassed about her passion.
I want you to stop. I thought you were going to say something. This is like an amazing idea. This is, when we were reading my introduction, women weren't even like this until, maybe the last 20 years, 30 years, women were always trying to please, always trying to play the rules, always trying to not do this, not do that. And here is a woman who's just out there, and this was written over 2,000 years ago. So that's why I love it. Okay, Bonnie.
Okay. This young woman is not embarrassed about her passion. Rather, she expresses it boldly to her lover and to her girlfriends, the daughters of Jerusalem. Yet she never seems lascivious or immoral.
Lascivious.
Sorry, my eyesight.
That's okay.
Her actions seem to teach us that it is acceptable for a woman of faith to be a woman of desires as well. In her essay, 10 Things Every Feminist Should Know About the Song of Songs, J. Cheryl Exum praises the song for its non-sexism, gender equality, and gynocentrism.
Yeah, gynocentrism. It's
Thank
around
you.
Women. Go ahead.
She is amazed that in this erotic, exquisite collection of poetry, there is no male dominance, no female subordination, and no stereotyping of either sex.
Okay. So, Cindy, you haven't read. So this is what Pamela was talking about. That this woman, this feminist commentator, thinks of it as both at the same time. So, Cindy, why don't you read this one?
Alicia Ostreicher, on the other hand, writes in her essay, Holy of Holies, the Song of Songs as countertext, that she understands Song of Songs to be simultaneously natural and spiritual, suggesting that one may begin by reading the song as a portrait of human passion and be led to imagine the possibility of a similar love relationship with God. Every mystical tradition on earth speaks of God as the beloved, and everyone in love sees the beloved's face and form as holy. If elsewhere we must divide the sacred from the secular, that division is annihilated on the song.
Okay, so I wanted to stop there for a minute. So there, Pamela, is exactly what you were talking about. That I love that she says, you see God in your lover's face. You know what I mean? Or you see the divine in your lover's face when you're in this place of complete unity with each other in love. And that it's a woman, though, what is unique is this is a woman who chooses her own lover. And they have this relationship and they're very equal. I mean, we'll see in the text, it goes back and forth. She talks to him, he talks to her, back and forth, back and forth. And this is the ideal relationship where you are equals and you can go back and forth and you do see the godliness or the holiness in each other. Yes, Nina.
I think that this is an answer to the way women were used when they were worshiping idols. This is the total opposite. The women used to be thrown to the fire. Women used to be, if they got pregnant, they said that it's self-abuse. They were
Who's they?
Homosexual acts in front of the statues. It was very acceptable. And women were not, even though they were supposed to be the priestess, they actually were abused physically. And it was a part of this whole ceremony. So having this to show the difference between the love of Israel and God, and then the way they worship the idols with the women being used, I think it's a comparison that shows you that there is a different way that a woman could be presented in Judaism, that it's not going to be the way it was when they were worshiping all these idols. Especially when he is marrying 1,000 women that come from different cultures, I think it was very appropriate that he's describing somebody that should be appreciated.
He wrote it. I don't think he wrote it. I don't think he had love for anybody.
I thought it was David. I don't know why, because the word dod was a
right. He didn't write it.
But if Solomon, that's for sure a good reason to put the
I don't think he wrote it.
Women on a pedestal, because he is the one who had the temple.
Yeah, but I don't see how a man with like 300 wives and 700 concubines could put any woman on a pedestal. He married all these women for political reasons because he wanted to make alliances with all of these different countries. He probably barely saw them. but I
Yeah,
probably
but isn't
had
that possible
500
that he's
children.
yearning to one who is going to be so different that
I
he's
don't think he wrote it. Honestly, I don't
okay?
think he wrote it.
Well, whatever it is, I think it's going to speak to everybody according to your own heart. It's what you
Okay, I
want to
think
look at
that's
it.
right. Okay, has
Yeah.
anybody not read? Daphna, do you want to read? You're not, you're not there right now. Okay, so we're going to go back to Rebecca because you were the first one, and let's look at this a little more. I want to just, the Zohar, which is like a part of the really, he talks about this. Hold on, that sex is actually symbolic of a connection, a holy thing too. All right. The Tanakh right here, Rebecca. This is a woman who says it's both spiritual and physical at the same time. Okay.
Oestreicher points out that the Tanakh views the joining of a man and a woman as potentially sacramental act, and that the sexual symbolism is pervasive in Jewish mystical writing. The union of a man and a woman is often compared
I'm sorry. Oneness of God.
The oneness of God, as the Zohar states. When is
a man
in his resemblance to the supernal?
That means God. When is a man called complete in his resemblance to God?
When he couples with his spouse in oneness, joy, and pleasure. Furthermore, not only did the Lurianic Kabbalists believe that it was a mitzvah to make love to their wives on Erev Shabbat, but they were exhorted to declare, I fulfill the commandment of copulation for the unification of the Holy One. Blessed be he and the Shekinah.
The Shekinah is the divine feminine aspect. So if you were a Kabbalist, you would actually say this after you, or before or after you had sex with your wife. I declare, this copulation is symbolic of the connection between the masculine aspect of God and the feminine. I said the Kabbalists were very, very respectful and aware of the feminine aspect of God. The Shekinah is the divine feminine's presence. And another name for God, Shekinah, we know it's feminine because na or always means feminine, is Shaddai. And Shaddai is another name for God. And it really comes from the word Shaddayim, which means breasts or nurturer.
I love it.
So there's like all these names for God, and some of them, and certainly the Kabbalists were very, and the Shabbat bride and the Shabbat queen, they were the ones who invented that idea. So I always loved, I learned that I always loved the Kabbalists because they were very egalitarian compared to other aspects of Judaism. We're talking about in the 1600s, in the 17th century. So that was pretty amazing that they were so, and there were women Kabbalists as well. There was a very famous woman Kabbalist, she's mentioned, named Francesca Sarah, who lived in Safat and knew the Luria, the Ha'ari, the head of the Kabbalistic movement. And she was a medium who had like a spirit speak through her, and they all believed in it. And she spoke prophecy, and she predicted things that happened, and she's mentioned in their books. And they totally listened to her. So, I mean, they respected and believed her. So, and I don't know.
Have you read the Zohar, Rabbi?
Well, that's why I was thinking that it's an answer to the way women was sacrificed and being treated while the idol thing was going on.
Right, but
because
children
it's
were
totally,
also sacrificed.
you give her importance here, and if she's a part of this whole union of men.
Right, but this was in 1600s. I mean, they weren't sacrificing anymore that I know of. But you're right. I understand what you're saying with a different view of women. Okay, so we're almost, let's just finish this up. So, all right, where are we? Okay. Okay, a fourth feminist understanding says that the song is a poetic expression of an individual woman's inner dreams and thoughts and emotions, presented in a variety of voices and acted out in a range of settings and sequences. So a fourth one is that it's all her, and it's one woman's inner life, and she's seeing it from all different points of view. And the nature of love and how to be loved is also the theme of a rabbi, Stefa Gold, in her book about Song of Songs. And she says again, intertwines human love and spiritual love, believing that the two cannot be separated. And this is whoever said about the garden, that, Pam, I think that is the message of the song. As I enter into the Song of Songs, I am tending the garden of two relationships at once, with my beloved partner in life and with God. So there are a number of feminist women who believe that the two relate. Okay, Pamela, why don't you read this? Like Alicia Ostriker.
Like Alicia Ostriker, God believes that these
Gold,
two relationships.
Gold. Her name is Sheppa Gold.
Sorry. Gold believes that these two relationships are dependent upon each other for their strength and their stability. But for Gold, that is only the starting point. Gold believes that song helps us comprehend the mystery of the love relationship, whether it be with one's beloved or with God, and actually become love itself. The path that the Song of Songs shows me is the path of complete embodiment. Thinking about love will not reveal its mysteries. We must enter through the senses, get our feet dirty, express our passionate longings, and breathe in the fragrances that surround us. Gold's focus is on the divine relationship as she explains that she encounters God in three ways: through her body and its miraculous senses, through the beauty of nature, and through intimacy with the other. In her commentary, she utilizes these criteria to expound on each verse in the song and to amplify her relationship with the Holy One.
So a lot of these modern commentaries are saying it's both at once, and that when you experience physical love, you can also experience spiritual love, and that the two are very interconnected. And I think when we read this text, which we're starting next week, I think when I read it, I actually get elevated to a different level. I mean, the language is so elevating and so evocative that you start to feel emotions, physical emotions, and all kinds of emotions. I just want to close with the very end, which was my understanding, which, I mean, I love all these and I use them all, and I just want to go to, because there's more. I sent this out if anybody wants to. Okay, so here it is. The commentaries of the Song of Songs are as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sands by the sea, whether literal, philosophical, ecclesiastical, allegorical, mystical, feminist, psycho-spiritual, historical, or linguistic. Among a multitude of interpretations, some of them define the subject of the song as the love between God and Israel, the union of the divine and the soul, the love of Christ in the church, the transition from human to divine love, an understanding of egalitarian, non-sexist, non-patriarchal relationships, the celebration of human emotional and sexual love, and a return to our ancient historical sources. I would like to add another commentary to the list, building upon some of those before me, both classical and modern. The Midrash teaches that the song has deep lessons to teach us about ethics, morality, and behavior, that underneath each metaphor is a message about how to behave in the world. On the other hand, we read feminist interpretations, I don't know why that shows up, that we are being presented with a model of what an independent woman bent upon forging a life for herself might look like. In the song, women are asked to evaluate themselves against the image of the passionate, sexy Shulamit. Her name is once called. She was willing to risk the disapproval of those around her in order to pursue her own happiness. I would like to present a new message. I interpret it as a guidebook of how to become such a woman. Text I will interpret will reveal a roadmap to sex, love, and happiness for the contemporary woman. It will be revealed as a primer on how to find one's beloved and how to behave in a relationship so that both partners feel adored and appreciated. In my interpretation of the song, women will come to understand what they must do to achieve this goal. The requirements will be both rewarding and demanding. They will require courage and vulnerability, honesty and introspection. It will be an introduction to all the taste, touches, smells, sounds, and visual delights of love. Every aspect of the senses will be engaged, reminding us that our bodies are as holy as our souls, and that physical pleasure is a delight when two people are each other's beloved. So that's my interpretation, but I actually, it could be fun to read. But also, I think we can, as a group, overlay a spiritual interpretation together.
I really like that.
Okay, so
I do
we'll,
too.
so it should be really interesting. And we will also look at where it transcends physical into the spiritual and into the natural world and all of that starting next week. And yeah, Pam, I will email you it should have been posted with the today with the Wilshire Weekly, but this is my introduction.
Rabbi, thank you. May I ask you a quick question about this? Creation. When we're making love, when you conceive a child and you're one with your husband, that's creation. That's
Yes,
close
it
to
is.
God. That's what I was thinking about this.
You're absolutely right, and that's in the story too. So
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom. Have a wonderful.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye, shalom, everybody.
Get into it. Oh, Pam, you have it.
Shabbat
Good.
shalom.
So are you
Bye,
going to talk about getting us to the Reagan? Because I know we don't have a bus anymore.
Yes, I will. Well, I'll be in touch with you all.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Nice
Thank you.
talking.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. What the hell went on here?